Hello, everyone, and welcome to the post-event, the third and final post-event Zoom call for Cultivate Your Voice. So thank you for joining us either here online or during the recording. Tonight, I just wanted to, again, take a little bit of time for accountability. So whoever's on right now, you can, if you're able to access the chat box, you can just type in any success reports that you might have or any questions about anything that you learned, and just write it in there. And otherwise, we're going to jump right into the training. So I actually have this on just because I'm so used to it. Now, sorry about the background. I just didn't care tonight. I actually teach Chinese kids English in the mornings sometimes. So that's what all this is. This is like my classroom behind me. So sometimes I angle it so you don't see it in the background. But anyway, I didn't think you guys would care. But we are going to get started. What I wanted to do, one of my goals, again, this is all about accountability. And I know one of our speakers spoke about podcasts, Chris did, and I've been wanting to start my own. So guys, this is my accountability. So I was doing some research tonight, and I've been to a couple of his podcast meetings, and I've heard other people talk and train on podcasting as well. And so I'm very excited. I want to do my own as well. I haven't narrowed down the exact niche. It's going to be business and empowerment related. But I have some quick training. I was looking up some stuff on the internet. So we're going to go over a couple things. Now, I actually just have this headset like this because, you can use earbuds or whatever. But whenever you do a webinar, a Zoom call, it's good to have earbuds connected into your computer so that there's not like an echo. Sometimes if you get too close to your computer, there's an echo. I think that happened in one of it was my pre-event seminar webinar. I think there might have been, and then I had a really bad cold and I was sniffling. So, but I'm used to using this headset anyway, so I just put this on. Now I use this for when like I said, when I do my teaching on the internet. So I'm very used to using the camera. However, there is a different headset I use when I'm recording. Now, like I said, I don't do a podcast, but I used to do voiceovers. So I am accustomed to recording into a microphone. And I brought my microphone out here today. Let me see if I can angle this. I have a couple microphones that I use for recording voiceovers. If I don't go into a studio, if I have to record it at home. Now, this is a simple Audio Technica is the microphone that I've used for recording, and it's really good. And it's USB, so you just plug it right into your computer. It's so easy, and it's excellent quality sound. And I think it was less than $100. So you can get some good quality microphones for less than $100 if it's good enough to do voiceovers on. And then I don't think you need this, but if you want, you can get special headset microphones. Again, this is Audio Technica. It just sometimes makes the editing process easier when you can hear it through these special earphones. But again, that's not necessary, but those don't even cost that much either. But you probably don't need those. I just happen to have them. Now, a windscreen is not necessary, but I do recommend some sort of a windscreen so your peas don't pop, okay? And so there's not too many, pops. And again, a windscreen, you could even do your own makeshift. So that's what this is. But again, I already had this because I do voiceovers. So this is definitely, it's not necessary. But if you think you're going to be doing a podcast and, just make one investment and get it all done and out of the way. So real quick here, we are going to, and thank you again for those of you tuning in. I appreciate it. It's a small crowd tonight, but that's all right. And hopefully everybody will be able to have a chance to listen to the recording. And so thank you again. So let's get started. Podcast checklist. Couple things. This is what I learned when I went to a podcast meeting with this special guest. He was saying how to do a pre-launch. Just like some people who write books, they do kind of a pre-launch and then a launch party. That's what basically he was telling us to do with our podcast. So what I'm going to do is probably like a 30 to 45 day or 60 day, something like that, launch, which means you get people excited, you start advertising it and marketing it, and then you launch it. Now, it's not necessary, but I think it's cool. I'm the type that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something big. And so what I would do is I want to advertise it, I want to market it, and so I'm kind of excited. So that's what I'm looking to do. But that's what this gentleman said, to get people excited and market it. That way you have an audience already built in. So for when the day you do drop that first download, your first few episodes, then you already have an audience that's excited about it. And there's some reasons behind doing that, and you can research that, but maybe you want to get up higher on the iTunes, you want to get in this special section. So there's reasons to do that. And that's, that's one thing I was going to consider doing. So I'm very excited. So that's the launch. But before you do the launch, just in the beginning, you got to get your microphone. You already have a computer. I recommend, I'm going to type in Audacity, okay, Audacity. That's the free software that you use. And if anybody needs help with that, maybe in the future, I can do a quick training just on Audacity and editing, if that is needed, if that is required. But I've had a couple people say they want to start podcasts, and I don't know how much detail that Chris went into as far as getting prepped for I know he talked about how important it is to have a podcast. And by the way, Google just changed their search engine, whatever, as of last week, which means, this is important, they will be now going into podcasts and I guess pulling, I don't know, something about Google and podcasts. And that's a good thing if you're a podcaster. And it's not a good thing if you're not a podcaster. No, basically, that means they're going to be using that information as well. Just like Google pulls information from blogs and YouTube, now they're going to be reaching in and pulling it in from podcasts. So that's something that was changed, I guess, in the last week with Google. So now it's so important to have a podcast for your business. So the first thing you want to find out is, what are you going to name it? Who's your target audience? And how long do you want it to be? Me personally, it's going to be like 10, 15 minutes max for the most part. If I'm interviewing somebody, it'll probably go longer. I'm definitely not going to do it more than once a week. I was thinking only twice a month. But we'll see. I think for the first 8 weeks, I will have one every week. And then after that, it might drop down to just twice a month. But what I plan on doing is I want to record at least 10 of them straight away. So you get a bunch recorded all in one setting. So that's what I recommend for you to do. That way, in your first few weeks, when you are getting it out there and promoting it, that way you're getting lots of downloads, you're getting lots of excitement, and you already have it already recorded. So take the next 2 months while you're doing your launch and getting everybody excited. Take that time as you're marketing it, take that time to record 10 episodes or so. All right, so that'll get you a good head start. And I recommend, well, I've done a little bit of research and I've talked to a couple people. It sounds like Libsyn and Podbean are pretty popular platforms to host your podcast on. And I believe I'm going to choose Libsyn. And I looked at the prices and I guess you could say the data or the memory, and I'm just going to do the $5 a month. I mean, that's plenty for what it offers. That's all I need, because I don't really need a bigger plan. I didn't feel as if it would benefit me. But feel free to research the different platforms, but those are two popular ones you can look at and see what fits you. So you choose your platform, you choose your title, and you might want to make sure that that title is not already taken on iTunes. You might want to purchase a URL for your podcast. I plan on doing that. So that will be a little tricky. Now, I was reading, they said to make your podcast somewhat generic, the podcast title, or something so that people know what you're talking about when you're doing your podcast. So let's see, what else? And then you'll want to, have your episode, your separate episodes. Those will be separate titles and maybe even a subtitle. Okay, so you choose your topic and your show, length of your show and your show format. Maybe you're interviewing somebody, or maybe you're just speaking yourself. Now, as far as music, you do want music as an intro and outro. You can use royalty-free music, and there's lots of royalty-free websites. I think one of them is called Audio Jungle, something like that. But there's plenty of those. But make sure you don't just use some song off your computer. It has to be royalty-free. Okay, so just make sure you use that. Now, they do have what they call intro, like an intro and like outro. So maybe you have another person that is introducing you. For instance, I've done several voiceovers for different speakers and people who do podcasts, and it was just me introducing them. So it's just like a 15, 20-second intro. Hi, and welcome to Now Hear This Entertainment. Bruce in the Tampa Bay area, I recorded an intro for him. I guess he's still using it. I said, are you still using it? So he is. But you don't have to worry about that. That's pretty minor. But it's good to have another voice that comes in as an introduction. So if you need me to do that, I can certainly do that. Or if you have somebody else that you know that has a good voice, maybe somebody of the opposite range as your voice. So maybe if you're a lady, you could get a man, or if you're a man, you can get a lady, just for that extra break in the voice. But that's what the intro and outro is. It's just a quick little 15, 20-second introduction. And so that's what that is. And you'll have to submit it to Apple Podcasts. And I haven't done a whole lot of research then. I was reading about that. But you definitely want to get it on Apple. But you don't have to worry about submitting that until later. But you'll do your own research on that. I didn't get too much into detail. Okay, now, so once you get all that started, start picking your topics and just outline. And again, once you start recording, you will have to edit it. If you don't want to edit it yourself and money is not an issue, you can always go over to Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and you can find an audio editor to edit your stuff. But it's really not too hard once you get used to it, especially if you're only doing like a 10 or 20-minute podcast. It's not going to take you too long. But if money is not an issue, they're pretty well priced at Fiverr. So you could always just submit your MP3 file and they'll edit it and bring it back to you. So that's an option, to have somebody edit that audio for you. Okay. So let's see here. What else did I want to go over? I got a whole list here. So again, your first thing you want to do is find out your topic, your title, your episode frequency, like once a week, episode length, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And of course, you'll want to get your microphone. You'll want to download your Audacity or whatever program you want to use. Mac has some excellent editing programs as well. But Audacity is totally free and it's great. It's safe. I've been using that for years. And you'll want to set your podcast launch date. Mine is going to be somewhere in November. I'm thinking second or third week in November. So that's going to give me a couple weeks right now to get some things situated, and it's going to give me about 45 days to market it and just get everybody excited. And they say you want to try and get an email list too of people that would be interested. So so you're going to get an email list, and so you're basically just marketing it to whoever your clients, whoever you think would want to listen to what you would like to speak about. And so we talked a little bit about the intro and outro, intro music, and the introduction. Somebody is doing a separate voiceover for the introduction, welcoming everybody to the podcast. Oh, and then after you get some of that set up, you'll want to start having someone create some graphics, some artwork for your podcast, because you're going to want some artwork. And maybe you're just developing your own logo for that podcast. Okay, so again, you can go on Fiverr, or if you're good at graphics or you know somebody else that's good at graphics, I am going to be looking into Fiverr for 2 logos, so that will need to be done very soon. But yes, so you want a logo to start getting designed for your podcasts. So you got to get that done. And let's see, I'm just looking over all my notes here to make sure we have everything. Now, what I like about Libsyn is that once you record it and you upload it on that platform, it will shoot it out to all these other areas like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and iTunes. But again, I think you have to do a separate entry to iTunes, so we'll have to research that whole iTunes thing. But that's what I like about Libsyn, is that it'll shoot it straight up to those every time. You don't have to go in individually and upload it to everyone manually. As far as I know, it sounds like it'll just send it straight there, which is awesome. And once you've got your graphics done, you can start updating social media profile. You might even want to start a whole separate business page. Myself, I'm probably just going to add it to my business page. I haven't decided yet. So I might have like a separate business page for that. But either way, you're going to want to have something on a business page, or something on Facebook, or I guess Facebook is where you would have the business page. But you want to start promoting it on social media. And even as you're recording, remember, in the 2 to 3 months that you're prepping for your launch, you can be recording as you're going. So by the time your launch date, so let's say my launch date is November 15th, I can have 10 or 15 already recorded. And some people will even maybe videotape yourself podcasting and creating as you're doing it. So that'll be kind of fun. So add that to my list of things to do. So do a little Facebook Live, and just let people see that you are recording your podcast and get them excited. They don't have to hear the whole thing, but they get excited. They only hear like a little teaser, and then they're going to want to tune in when it's time for you to drop your podcasts. Now, when I was reading today, it looked like it said don't be afraid to drop numerous podcasts the same day, because the more downloads you get, the better ratings you'll get on iTunes. And this is specific. I'm saying this because iTunes, I think they have this ranking system, and they have this category, new and, the new and noteworthy. So if you want to get in on that special list, I do recommend dropping a few downloads, not just one. And they also said, if you can, a few weeks prior to your launch date, get on other people's podcasts as well, and be a guest there. And other podcasters are usually pretty cool about letting someone come on if it's okay with their genre of what they do. And so you'll want to check that out. So yeah, look around at some of the other podcasters, especially some of the local podcasters. And hello to whoever just joined us. Thank you for joining. You can type in the chat box. Let me know who you are. We were just talking about podcasting. And yeah, so let's see what else. Let me look on my list here. Now, if you have any questions, or if you have you thought about doing a podcast yourself? If you have, type that in the chat box. Let us know what type of podcast you would do, how long you think it would be. Now, again, the podcasts, you can do it all yourself, or you can have an interview with someone. Myself, I'm probably going to go back and forth. One week, it might just be me speaking. The next week, I might have an interviewer, or I'll have somebody that I'm interviewing. So I do know that it's a little bit more work if I have to bring somebody on, but it also makes it more interesting too, to bring somebody else on as just for something for a change. So I'm going to try both and see how they work, and we'll go from there. Now, once you're finished, let's see, that went pretty quickly. I talked about royalty-free music, and I talked about creating a launch. And again, the launch, you want to create a buzz for your podcast. Okay, create a buzz so people get excited about it. So I think we've gone over pretty much the checklist there, everything that I mentioned. Oh, editing, of course you have to edit. What I recommend is maybe recording your first one and jump on Audacity and listen to it. So what you're going to want to pay attention to when you're recording is your breathing, you know, when you take a deep breath and things like that. And you want to watch your ums or any other filler words. You might have a filler word, like my filler word sometimes is so. I think I'm more aware of it now. Therefore, I don't use it. So I don't use it. So now I'm thinking of, now it's on my mind, but just be cognizant of what your filler word is, whether it's or so. And it's okay if there's silence, it's okay. And actually that was silence because my brain could not think of the next word I was going to say, but that's okay if there is silence. So one of our, Amy says, I actually started to do short video to add to my social media, including YouTube. Okay, wonderful. Excellent. And that's the other thing. Thank you for sharing that, Amy. That's the other thing, is that people can, when you're doing your podcast, you don't have to be on video. I kind of like that idea, but you can be. And as Amy is doing, or I'm not sure. So Amy, you're not necessarily recording for a podcast. It sounds like you're recording for YouTube, and that's cool. So let me tell you, Amy, Chris Kremitsos, his meeting that he has on the second, I believe it's the second Tuesday of every month, is for YouTubers and podcasters. They just open it up to YouTubers. So that's the second Tuesday, and that is at the IHOP in Tampa on Boy Scout Road, or Cypress, whatever you call it. No, not Cypress, but Boy Scout Road. It's by the mall, by the International. I'm typing it out. International Plaza Mall. Spruce. Yeah, Spruce. Okay. So, so yeah, check that out. But what I like about Amy, your idea is great, because you could be doing two things at once. So if I felt like I wanted to do a YouTube as well, I could literally have a video camera separate, and then I would have my podcast microphone separate. So now I have just my podcast, and then I have the YouTube as well. And then, yes, you're killing two birds with one stone. And I think I might have mentioned that a little bit at the conference. I kept talking about content creation and reusing it. Okay, so you want to do that. And even if you do a YouTube video, now they have apps and software where if you just did a YouTube video, it can extract the audio from it as well. So you could do it that way too. So either one. Uh-huh. Okay, I've been using excuses. Yes, Ash, Amy's been using excuses. I know we all do. Exactly. My excuse is, oh, I need to have a 60-day launch. So I don't know if I'm just procrastinating, but literally that was drilled in my head from Neil, which is a guy who's big into podcasting. And I just remember that was so impactful to what he taught us. I always remembered that. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a launch before I host my thing. But I'm not really procrastinating because I'm still recording. If you get in there, you start recording, you're not really procrastinating. You're just procrastinating launching it, I guess. But for what I want, I mean, I want it to be, I don't want to just say, oh, hey, I'm doing a podcast just to say I'm doing a podcast. If I'm going to do one, I want to reach as many people as possible in the world, right? Not just Tampa Bay. So in order to do that, you want it to get up high in the rankings on on i iTunes. So that's kind of my goal. So that's why I'm going to be a little bit more particular about my launch, and I want it to be kind of like a big thing. And they were talking about having people do reviews and things like that. So you can do more research. I was reading all that tonight, but so that was just some really good information. And okay, so back to recording. I would do one episode and then start playing around with your recording software and the editing. Well, it's editing and it's the same thing. Your editing and recording software, same thing, Audacity. So the editing is going to be a little bit interesting. So I do recommend trying to be as smooth as you can when you're recording because it'll make editing a lot easier. So just, again, be careful of what you're saying. Me personally, I'm probably going to have a lot of things written out, some bullet points, so I'm not just rambling on. I definitely want bullet points so that it goes, you want to be able to keep people's attention, right? So write it down, some bullet points of what you're going to say. And when it comes to recording, you might, what I was reading too is they said, don't be so picky about, it's okay if you say an here and there. It just shows that you're human. It's okay if you leave a few breaths in, but if it's like really a lot of deep breaths and stuff like that, you might want to take out a few, or if there's any annoying pops. Now there is some, when you go into Audacity, there are some editing tools that will help soften the pops with the P's and soften the S's. So it's not like, okay. Now, if you have a really sensitive mic, like this one is very sensitive. That's actually the downfall about a good mic. Like it will catch everything. So maybe you don't want a very strong mic. I mean, it will catch every little thing. If you have a paper rustling, it'll catch the paper rustling. So just remember that when you're recording. So I recommend just even before you do the whole 10 minutes, record for like 2 minutes just for some practice, and then you'll hear how the microphone is picking up some stuff, and then you might have to do some training on how to edit, but it's pretty simple. Audacity is pretty easy. And if you just Google what to edit, it's pretty easy. It didn't take me very long to learn Audacity, and I am totally not a techie person because I do not like techie stuff, but I caught on to Audacity fairly quickly. Just watch a little demo video, and you don't really need to do a whole lot of editing. I actually had to do a lot of editing because I was providing voiceovers that people paid for. So I had to make sure it was like perfect. But again, according to what I was reading, it's okay. You want to sound human. It's okay if there is a couple ums here and there, as long as it's not like every minute or every 30 seconds. So you'll be able to pick that up and see. But they did say try not to be too picky when it comes to editing. And that was my issue. I actually started I started a podcast a couple years ago, 3 years ago, and I interviewed two amazing guys, and they were so much fun, and they were such good interviews. These guys were just they were great interviewees because they knew how to interview. So that's the other thing. Let me I'll come back to that in a minute. But I was a perfectionist because I didn't like how I sounded. And then I had to edit everything. And so I said, you know what? No, this is too much work. And I never did anything with it. So don't be like me. Don't be a perfectionist. And don't worry about the editing. You just got to get through it. Now, we didn't really talk about why. I'm sure Chris covered this at the event, but I guess let me reiterate, why do we want to do a podcast? Why? Why do I want to do a podcast? I think it sets you apart as an expert in your field because it's like having your own radio show, practically. Basically, you're like, oh yeah, I have my own internet radio show. Well, it's not really obviously it's not a radio show, but if you had it a live podcast, you would be able to bring in, people could call in with questions. But most of us will probably have recorded. I'm going to have a recorded. I'm not going to have anything live for the most part. Well, I mean, I might, but for the most part, it's going to be all recorded. So, but it sets you apart as an expert in your field. And it's another way to bring people to your newsletter, to your list, your email list, right? So you want to get people on your email list. And then eventually they might buy a product or service from you. And it's fun. If you make it fun, you can make it fun as well. So that's another good reason to do it. And you can eventually, you might be able to monetize on it, but I wouldn't count on that right away. I mean, it could take you a long time. You may never monetize on it, meaning you might not make money on the ads. And you'd have to have a pretty big listening audience before somebody will pay you to have ads on there. Okay. But that is one way to monetize if you had ads, but you got to have pretty big following. But again, you can monetize, meaning if you sell something on your podcast and you drive them to your website. Okay. So what are you going to be selling? What can you sell on your podcast? And you don't have to sell on every episode. Again, you're driving them to your website, or you're driving them to your YouTube channel, or whatever it is that you want to point them to. Okay. Or you have a podcast to point them to your webinar that you're going to have. And then on your webinar is where you might be presenting something. Okay. So there's just all sorts of cool things that you can do with this. Now, let me come back to, let me get a drink of water here. Let me get back to when I talked about, we're going to be wrapping this up in just a couple minutes. So if anybody else wanted to type in anything that they might want to share, if you're considering doing a podcast, what type of podcast would it be? Or any other successes that you want to type in the chat box that you've had over the last couple of weeks since since our event, any successes at all, doesn't have to relate to podcasting, anything at all that you learned and you adapted and you put into play, go ahead and type that in the chat box. So what I wanted to talk to you real quick about was when you're doing it, if you're ever interviewing somebody, you want to prep your person. So you always want to make sure that the person you're interviewing doesn't go on and on and on. It's called sound bites. So whether you are a guest on somebody else's podcast or somebody is a guest on your podcast, you want to make sure that they're able to answer the questions within a few sentences. So you don't want them to do a whole monologue, or maybe you do. But when I interview somebody, I like to kind of go back and forth. Okay. So that's the whole point of interviewing, is go back and forth and interact a little bit. So keep that in mind when you are interviewing. And one thing I picked up that I wasn't even aware of, but I think I learned this from a radio show host. If you're ever on the radio, again, same thing, whether you're on a radio or a podcast, it's okay to overlap each other because then there's no dead silence. So it's okay as the interviewer to, if you have to cut them off, or if it, as long as it sounds like they're getting to the end of their sentence, it's okay if you stepped over one word of theirs. Because I believe I read that, or somebody told me that once, that it's okay. You want a little bit of overlapping. So next time you tune into the radio show, you just listen to the radio shows when they're talking back and forth. They're usually overlapping each other. There's not like a complete silence, a break, and then one person talks, and then there's a break, somebody else talks. They're usually overlapping. So keep that in mind. But you want to have your interviewee, what I like to do is either have them send me questions that they want me to ask them. That makes it a lot easier, so you don't have to do any other research. So have them send you questions that they want you to ask them. So that's going to help your process. Okay, so Amy typed in, I figured out how to start and end using the headphones. I put my iPhone on a tripod and downloaded iMovie Editor. I did research so I could slowly build up and watch my cost. Okay, iPhone. Okay, wonderful. Okay, good, awesome. Okay, nice job. Okay, so you're doing it on your iMovie Editor, right on your phone. Wow, interesting. Okay. All right, well, so Amy, I don't know if you've released these videos yet. Do you have your YouTube channel live right now? If you do, type it in the chat box so we can all support you. Or if you don't, that's okay. But when you're ready to launch your YouTube channel or launching these videos, feel free to share it in our private Facebook group. Okay. And again, if you're listening to this recording, I believe I invited most of you to my Cultivate Your Success private group. So if you're not on there yet, just be sure to join that Facebook group. I put some messages in there, and it's just a good way to stay accountable and encourage each other. So Amy, just let us know about your YouTube channel, either right here in the chat box or in the group when you're ready to do that. So Amy, what are your YouTube videos about? I assume it might be about photography, since you do photography, but it could be something completely not even related to photography. So that's what's cool about, that's what's really cool about podcasting, is you can do whatever you want. You don't have to have a podcast in what you have your business in. It could be something completely unrelated. So you choose what you want. Oh, okay. So Amy has been posting to her business Facebook page, Instagram, and YouTube are all Amy Chirinos Photography. And you know what, Amy, I wanted to apologize. I know I found one of your gift certificates in my box. I know you had given something to my staff the day of the event, and I was supposed to raffle it off. Of course, I saw it, or somebody told me, and then of course it left my brain, and I didn't see it till weeks later, so I apologize. So we'll have to raffle that off, or if you want me to save it or whatever, we can maybe do a raffle. I still have, oh, you know what? I still have those business cards. You know what? I'm going to do the raffle right now. I think it's even within reach. I'm going to do the raffle. So Amy, if it's okay, we're going to do the raffle. And yeah, because I wanted to do so much more that day. I literally just was so exhausted and we ran out of time, but I wanted to do more raffles. And everything was just like, all right, let's just be done. I was just such a long day. It was amazing. I think I was just, anyway, so let me grab that. I believe I can grab it without having to disconnect here. So again, thank you, Amy, for donating that. And I have a bunch of these. I have everybody's business card for those of you who had stayed to the end of the event that day. I think that's when we gathered all these business cards. Yeah, I still have them in here. I knew there was a reason I didn't take them out. Okay, so let me just make sure. I don't know what this is. What's this? Oh, okay. What is that? I don't know what that is. Okay, so all right, I'm gonna mix them up. All right, I'm gonna mix up the cards. So here's everybody's business cards that stayed till the end of the day at Cultivate Your Voice. And the winner is going to get the gift certificate that Amy had given me for whatever the gift certificate is, some photography, right? Headshots, I believe it is, or something. So I will let you know whoever the winner is. Okay, da 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 da. Who's it gonna be? And da 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 da. It is. Oh, Trudy with PSI TV. Trudy Bierman is the winner. All right, so Trudy. Oh, and by the way, Trudy was also one of our sponsors. Trudy and Linda, thank you. They were there that day. I had another sponsor, Carrie, with Sound Branding Ideas. He was not able to make it, but he was another sponsor. But again, thank you to my sponsors. And if you haven't got your free video yet for the Roku channel with Trudy, make sure you do that and reach out to Linda as well with Send Out Cards and see how she can be of service to you. Okay, so thank you again to my sponsors. Thank you to all of my attendees. Thank you to, of course, all of my awesome speakers that came. And I do have a few more openings. I still have like 3 or 4 more spots available for my program as well. So again, that was Your Voice of Influence. And that included the 50 Instagram templates, and that also included 25 content creation ideas, whether you're podcasting, YouTubing, blogging, writing articles. So those are some awesome ideas. There are 25 content creation ideas. Again, you can use those for multiple things and use those for everything. Your Voice of Influence online program. And also included in that program is my recordings, the recording tips and hosting tips on how to use your voice. So that'll be included. And that's about a 45-minute audio training divided up into several different chapters. You're going to get that included. And we're going to start we haven't started our group Zoom calls yet for this program because I wanted to finish up these before I dived into the other ones. So we're going to probably start those in the next week or so. So you will get 2 group Zoom calls with our small group and 1 personal group Zoom coaching call at the end as well. So all of that, and you get a ticket to our next Cultivate event in January. So that's just a bonus, and that's Cultivate Your Health and Wealth. And so that whole thing is only $87. So if you want to jump on that, just let me know, reach out to me. I do have about 3 more spots because I was limiting it to only 10 people because of just, there's going to be a lot of different things going on. So I just wanted to keep it limited. So if anybody wanted to join in for that program, please just reach out to me, message me. If you want more details, I can send you some more details, but a ticket alone for our next event are usually, $57. So you've already got your free ticket. So that's what's cool. That's included, plus all the extra training you're going to get. And so if there's any way I could be of help to you guys, feel free to reach out to me. And, we can do a little one-on-one, a little consultation or something. So I'm just so glad that everybody was able to attend. And thank you for listening to the recordings here. Oh, and by the way, make sure you check out the recording of the last one. Did you guys listen to that? I had Ruben Irvin, and his stage name technically is Ruben Waru, but Ruben Irvin is his real name. But Ruben and I worked together at Universal Studios and then at Nickelodeon Suites. He actually kind of got me hired for the Nickelodeon gig because he knew me from before. So that was kind of cool. But now he works with Steve Harvey, and he is his host for all of Steve's shows. Steve had Thunderdome. He had the little kids show. He used to have his own talk show. He had Family Feud. He does Miss Universe. And Ruben is his warm-up host for every single thing he does. So that was just so awesome. And I hadn't talked to Ruben, and I just thought, you know what? That would be cool if he would like to come on. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was so excited. But I didn't want to mention it until I knew for sure. So I didn't want to, but sorry, it was kind of a last minute on that one, but you can certainly watch the recording. And he had some really good tips on how to keep the energy going during your events and how he keeps the audience excited and participating. And of course, using music is one of the things he talks about, and just interacting with the audience. So he's super cool. So if you have a chance, be sure you look into that recording and watch that for some ideas on recording. So he's a fun guy. He also has done warm-up host for several of TV shows like The Bachelor, Deal and No Deal, Kelly Clarkson Show, and I don't know, a bunch of other ones. Plus he does regular emceeing and DJing for other events. So that is Ruben. So make sure you watch that recording. And I wanted to congratulate again Lori Wilson. Lori was at our event and she also joined my program. But just going to the event, much like Melanie said, one of our speakers, much like Melanie, when you go to these events, you just get this surge of confidence and this surge of inspiration and a surge of motivation that you're like, you know what, I can do it. And that's what happened to Lori. And then she came to my lunch. During the lunchtime, we had that extra training on the microphone. She's like, wow, this was great. She's like, I want to do it again. So she really felt empowered just by being on the microphone, and it really broke her fear of speaking. And she's like, you know what, this is kind of fun. I want to do it. So she actually went ahead and presented at a networking meeting 2 weeks later, when she would have never volunteered to ever talk in public. And she did. It was like a book club meeting where we talk about the chapters every week, and everybody takes turns presenting the chapter. And she did it. And so congratulations to Lori. And I know there's a bunch of people out there doing really good, but I love hearing success stories like that. So thank you again. And Amy, I'm so glad that you're doing your YouTube channel. So we'll be in touch. I'll probably see you at some of the networking meetings. And for everybody, thank you, Yvette, for being online. And thank you, everybody else who's on here that I might not tell who it is. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will see you guys. Make sure you connect on social media with me. I did send out the newsletter. So if you want, you can connect to me, or you can find me on social media, Your Gig Girl. Now, I don't send out many newsletters at all. Like, I don't even know MailChimp very well. Like, it took me, like, I don't even send out many letters, but actually it's my goal to send out at least once a month. But you don't have to worry. I'm not going to be sending you any newsletters, every other day. Probably just once a month, just to keep you updated on anything. If I have a podcast I'm going to be dropping, or if there's any specials, or for a holiday newsletter. So things like that. So feel free, if you'd like to subscribe or stay subscribed to my newsletter, that's great. And if you don't, that's okay too. Just hit the unsubscribe button. But I hope to keep in touch with you one way or another, and we'll see you online. So thank you again, everyone, and keep getting out there to cultivate your voice. All right. See you later. See you online. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.